What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Riding Dad channel. As you can see by the thumbnail and the title of this video, it's going to be about how I sold my motorcycle. So let's roll the intro and I'll explain why.
Riding down a YouTube channel, it's the Riding down a YouTube channel, it's the Riding down a YouTube channel, it's the Riding down a thing that you found.
Okay, so right now, what I need you guys to do to help me out is, if you believed that I sold my Harley, hit the thumbs up because I got you. I would never sell my Lowrider S. I freaking love that bike. That bike is awesome. For those of you who watched the video that's actually playing behind me, my new bike reveal video, I got a 1994 Suzuki DR350. I'm going to go ahead and post a picture of what it looked like when I first bought it, assuming that I still have the picture. I think I do, so if I do, you'll be looking at it right now. I don't know where to begin with this freaking mess. When I got it, I test rode it. I wasn't stupid. Like I heard it run, I test rode it, I looked it over. The bike obviously cosmetically needed work, and I know that. That's why I got it for a really cheap price. The guy seemed, pretty cool. And I still don't know if he was like, he tried to pull one over on me and unfortunately I was the sucker, or if he truly just had no clue. His story was that he originally bought the bike from some guy kind of out a little farther away from where I live. That's like more of a rural area and people have these kind of bikes typically. He bought it from that guy who was just tired of it, got a different bike, whatever, because it's an old bike. It's 26 years old by the time I bought it. So he had it for like half a year. He decided he didn't ride motorcycles anymore. A coworker then bought it from him and used it as a daily commuting bike. And then coworker had some family issues, some medical bills, and needed to, like, as a last resort, sell the bike back to this guy, kind of like as a favor, like, will you please buy it back, pretty much for what I paid for it. He did it. When my seller got it, he said it didn't even have it had a header on it, but it didn't have the muffler side on it at all for the exhaust. So he just put one on that kind of didn't match. It fit okay for the bike, like it actually matched up for some of the mounting points, but it wasn't made for the bike. So pressure and like actual schematics of the pipe was not made for that bike, and then also the pipe didn't really fit on the rear fender that well. It actually like was rubbing on it and like cutting into it and stuff, and then it melted the return signal. Anyway, like I said, cosmetically I knew there was issues, but I also felt that the bike, it started right up. I felt that the bike actually ran pretty good, and like I said, it was really cheap. So when I got it home, I tested the compression of the engine. Engine compression tested good. I replaced the spark plug. I ordered a whole bunch of parts, not because it necessarily needed it, but it was like a peace of mind. The wheel bearings were shot on the front and rear wheels. The cush drive, which for those of you who don't know, basically the sprocket attaches to the wheel. There's like these rubber pieces in there. I bought new cush drive assembly for it. A new chain, which I would always buy when I bought a used bike that wasn't like brand new for the most part, because you never know. And if a chain breaks, one, you're stranded. Also, two, could be super dangerous. So yeah, like I said, cosmetically I knew it needed work. I took it home, I painted all the fenders, I replaced that spark plug. I had basically box after box of parts sitting there. The tachometer didn't work. Basically after the first day of having it, I realized, well, the first day of getting a plate on it so I could actually take it, farther than my driveway down the road and stuff, I realized that once the bike got warm, there was an issue with it. It didn't feel like it had like a whole lot of power. No, it was a 350. I wasn't expecting any rocket ship out of it, but I was expecting it to be, get above 40, 45 miles an hour readily, easily. So basically started at kind of the most logical thing. I went and joined a whole bunch of forums and read as much as I could and watched as much as I could on YouTube about this bike. Basically started with the carburetor, looking at what jets I had with it, testing it, seeing if the carb was good, all that kind of stuff. I have a video on that, switching the carbs out. I just posted that a little bit ago. Long story short, the carb that was on the bike was an upgraded version of the carb that was like a typical thing that everybody did for that bike pretty much. And it seemed good, but after messing with it and still not fixing the issue, I was like, you know what? Carbs are not that expensive. If I wind up getting a new carb and the old carb is okay, I'll just sell the old carb or the new carb. And unfortunately, I'll just, I'll lose a little bit of money from buying new and then selling, obviously, but at least I'll make a little bit of money back because that carb was very popular, especially amongst these forum people were always buying them. So I switched the carbs out just for the hell of it to eliminate, one final thing, put the correct jetting in there for my bike. And the problem got a little bit less present, but it was still very much a problem. So then I kind of trickled down, tested a whole bunch of other stuff, looked for shorts and everything. So then the next kind of progression in trying to fix this was a coil pack. Coil packs are cheap. For those of you who don't know what the coil packs are, basically there's a box called the CDI box, and that is what your signals from your stator and the stator sensor go to. And then that CDI box has like a bunch of magic in it, and then your signal moves to what's called a coil pack, which is just literally like a little pack. And then that is responsible for your actual spark plug firing and the timing of it in relation to your stator and your RPMs and everything. So I replaced the coil pack. I was able to get a non-OEM one, but a decently rated like aftermarket one for only $15. I'm like, hey, if this fixes it, this is great. I did that. I also checked the valve clearance and adjusted the valves just in case there was something weird going on with it. And I changed the oil and made sure the oil level was good. So I did all that, and the problem was still there. So the next thing, which was unfortunate because of how much money it cost, was a new CDI box, which is that box I just told you about. A lot of people, unfortunately, it's not a real common issue, but just because of how old these bikes are, some of the soldering connections get lost, and when the bike gets warmed up and your RPMs get up there's just something wrong with that CDI box. But I was hesitant because, unfortunately, being an electronic component, most of these CDI boxes, they weren't available new from anywhere. But most of these CDI boxes used on eBay were non-returnable, and I didn't want to spend $200 to $300 on a CDI box, have it not be the problem, and basically have a $300 CDI box that I was going to try to at least make some of my money back on. So fortunately, there was a returnable CDI. Bought the CDI, wound up testing the CDI in between my shipping time, and figured out that it wasn't a CDI problem. So fortunately, when the CDI got here, I didn't even put it on the bike. I just requested a return. It was authorized. I shipped it back. Like I said, thankfully, I didn't lose any money on that besides shipping, which was like $8 or $9, and I could take that. In the grand scheme of how much money CDIs were and all this money that I was putting on the bike, I'll take that. In my mind, and in the eyes of everybody in these forums that I was checking to, there was only really one other issue, and that would have either been the stator or one of the sensors in relation to the stator. There is two sensors in the stator. There's a low RPM and a high RPM. In the middle of all this, the RPM, the tachometer of the gauge cluster never worked when I got it. The owner that I bought it from, he basically said when he got it, the tach wasn't working. He wasn't sure why, but it wasn't working. So I attributed it to a faulty tach because, again, the bike was 26 years old. It's a digital component. I figured it was just out, which what he told me was what he figured as well. So I got a digital speedometer and tachometer that I got from Sando, just the kind of cheap Amazon one. It was somewhat plug and play. It was plug and play in the respect that I'll put some pictures of as I'm talking about it. It literally plugged in. I didn't have to cut anything or play doctor with it. But it was, being that it was a Chinese, model from Amazon with no aftermarket support, and it was a universal speedometer, it was so difficult getting the pin connectors right. It took me basically a whole day to wire this thing correctly to make sure that everything worked. Then it worked. And unfortunately, the RPMs still weren't reading at all. The digital tachometer of that wasn't going on. So after knowing that it wasn't a CDI problem, the only other thing in my mind, and people that I bounced this idea of, that would have affected both the actual fact that the engine would cut out around somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 RPM. Oh, and the tachometer would just all of a sudden kick on after the bike was warmed up at 3,000 to 4,000 RPM. It would kick on about 3, go up to 4, and it would only work in that kind of region. And once you hit 4, the bike would pretty much just cut out. It would either lose spark or spark is kind of what I'm assuming happened, because the engine just completely died. And I know the carburetor was good, and since it wasn't fuel injected, the only other kind of possible thing to happen would be that the spark would just be lost. And I know the spark was good, I know the coil pack was good, and I know the CDI. So the next thing in chain of custody kind of goes would basically be, like I said, the stator, or one or both of the stator sensors, or a culmination of all of them. So what I could have done was take the actual case off, inspect the stator, possibly get a new stator, possibly get a new sensors or a whole set, test that. But here's the other thing. The bike sitting, it did not leak oil at all. There wasn't a slow leak or anything, but because it was so old and none of the O-rings and the gaskets on any of the engine components were really ever replaced from what I could tell, when it got warmed up and the oil got hot and it got thinner, it just started to slowly leak out of all of these, engine covers, the valve cover, I don't think the head gasket leaked, which was surprising, but really everything else, any of the covers of this bike engine, all the oil would start to leak out very slow. It wasn't a terrible, but after 30, 40 minutes, you'd have a little bit of a faint, from the wind kicking it all over the place, you just have a little bit of a faint cover on certain parts of this bike. So I had to make the choice like I said, if it was worth diving in and actually spending the money on the stator stuff, diagnosing it, and then having it be maybe that didn't fix it. And now because the stator, once I installed that definitely was not going to be returnable. It was going to be covered with oil and everything. So and I know what you're saying, you could test the stator, and yes, I did test it to the best of my ability. I am not an electrician, I am not a whiz with a multimeter. I do enough to get by, and from what I could tell, it was okay, but there was also one test for that specific bike I really wasn't able to do with my setup without spending money on something else. And for the amount of money I would have had to put and time and everything, it would have just been more worth it for me to just kind of buy the stator for it. So yeah, I kind of cut my losses. Fortunately, all of the stuff I bought for it, with the exception of the speedometer that I put in, like the chain and everything like that, I was able to return because I didn't need it. Small stuff like the front wheel bearing kit was $11 from Dennis Kirk, so I just left that for the new buyer. Carb, unfortunately, I left the new carb in there because it was already in there, and I'm just going to wind up selling the old carb on eBay. Or if you're watching this and you want a Mikuni TM33, just hit me up on the comments here, or check out my Instagram and just DM me there. That way we can have a private conversation about it. But from what I could tell, nothing was wrong with the carb. It worked the same with this carb that I did with the new carb that I put in there. So yeah, like I said, cut my losses and just kind of listed it up for what I paid for it. Unfortunately, I lost a lot of time that I put into it. However much you want to value your time at, I lost a lot of that. And then I lost the money for the carb, and I lost some small money, the money for the Speedo, but it wasn't like I was, like I said, I bought the bike for cheap, so it wasn't like I bought a $20,000 car or bike and then I sold it for $10,000 or something like that. So sold it to a guy that works at a local bike shop. So I told him, I was like, dude, when you get this running, just for my curiosity, because it's pissed me off for so long, you got to let me know what the fix was, just because I need to know. So that was the other thing. Even if I fixed it, at this point, I had a bad taste in my mouth for this bike. It was something that I was working on for weeks, and it was almost an everyday occurrence where I would strip this bike down, tank, seat, fairings off, and just play with the wiring and stuff like that. And it was just something that I know, some of you would be like, you had all this time wasted and put into this bike, why not just keep it and ride it out? But it's just not me. If it was like some pristine model of a DR, like all original paint, looked great, then yeah, I would probably 100% keep it, but it wasn't. You guys saw the picture of the bike. I'll post a picture. I can't send you guys a picture. I'll post a picture of what the bike actually looked like after I was done with it, with all the new fairings and everything now, if I forgot to do it in the beginning of the video. So I did considerably improve the look and operation of this motorcycle, but it just wasn't worth it. The other part of that was, when you're looking at it's a dual purpose, more of a dirt, it's not like an ADV, it's more like a dual purpose bike. And originally I thought, because of the areas that were accessible to me, that it would be pretty fun, and I would ride it a lot, but thinking about it and having it for a couple weeks, weighing, you know, kind of the pros and cons of that style bike, I don't think I would use it as much as I actually thought originally I would. Although there are some spots near me, to get to some of those spots, it's already like a 35-40 minute drive, and it's not like the spot you can spend like a whole day out there. And I think if anything, I would have needed to get like a small trailer or like one of those tongue trailers for like a lightweight bike for my car, to be able to take it to this place that's about an hour and somewhere around an hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes away from me. And there's like a whole big field open there. But when I used to live elsewhere, I also had a side-by-side and an ATV. And I know from experience that I get somewhat tired of off-roading stuff, and I pretty much always come back to street. So the only good thing that came out of it was all of my tools that, like, I had some like scrap tools lying around from, you know, just being a kid and having tools, but all of my actual good sets of tools were for Harley. They were SAE standard sizes. I did wind up buying a whole bunch of metric size tools, which again was money put into the project, but those are tools that I keep forever, you know, until somebody steals my 10 mil. So, or I misplace it realistically. So basically I have all those tools, and I don't want to spoil anything for Saturday's video if you're watching this, but let's just say that it's a very good thing that I kept all of my metric tools that I bought for this bike. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please check out my other videos. I have Instagram and I have this YouTube channel. That's all I got going for me. So on social media stuff. So please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Definitely hit the subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, because there are pretty cool videos to come. I've also mentioned, once I hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, that I'm going to be doing a giveaway. There is still a giveaway coming. It's going to be a good giveaway. Jeez, I really can't talk apparently. Unfortunately, what's going on with the giveaway is that, it's not really unfortunate, it's just I'm trying to figure out really the best one that I want to do. So it's not me like, oh, I want to wait and get more subscribers out of this. I'm doing it at 1,000. And I just want to really figure out what's going to make the most of you guys happy, and the majority of you guys will want this instead of, you know, something that I would want. So I'm still trying to figure it out, feel it out, and decide on it, but it is coming soon. I do promise. I'm not lying about this. My other giveaway was a real thing. It's really happening. So stay tuned, and many videos to come. I post videos every Wednesday and every Saturday. As of now, I slightly changed my upload timing schedule. Wednesday's still at noon Florida time. Saturday's Florida time was 7. Now it's at 5 o'clock. So anyway, here's a video YouTube thinks you like. Here's a video I just recently uploaded. Check out one or both of those. I appreciate it. And until the next time, guys, ride safe, have fun. Dad out.